So for now, we actually have a total of the amount we spend on transport weekly, which is about 357,800. Well, that's a really huge amount. Please bear with me. Total transport per week. Now, here's the thing. If you're given this data by default or at random, you will realize that you will never be able to guess that we spend this much on transport alone. I don't think you ever come to that conclusion. But the moment you're able to do a little bit of basic arithmetic on it, you kind of have a figure. You have something that looks like this, and then maybe you'll be shocked, maybe you'll be surprised, maybe you'll be like, it's not even much. At least that way, your mind is able to come to some kind of reasoning and some kind of conclusion about what is in the data set. All right, so from there, let's take on some other function. Let's count on how many people do we actually have in this group, right? How many people actually filled this survey? Number of participants. And then we can use the count function this time. The count function, the counter function or the count a function, whichever one you want to call it. And it's going to be equal to counter. And it's asking for a value. The count a function allows you to count the number of cells that are not empty, right? And you want to count from here, which is the first name, down to the last name. I'm sure everybody actually filled in their names. So that's why we're actually counting the names. You can decide to count any of these other columns. But one thing I noticed in the data set is that everybody filled in their name. For some of the other cells, there are some that is skipped, like this case. This person skipped this detail. In this case, in some other cases too, okay, this person skipped all of this, but the name were all filled. So we're going to count the names this time and then close our brackets. What's our value? There are 71 participants. And the total amount that these 71 people spend on transport per week is 357,800. Now, we've actually done addition and a count, right? Let's go ahead and find the average amount spent per week on transport for these 71 people. To find the average, the function is average equal to average, and then we can select the cell that actually contains our transport. Sorry, the column that contains our transport. So you want to find the average transport. So you select the cell, and this time the first cell here is cell E2. We're going to select that, then Control Shift plus down, so that it can take us to the last column, the last cell, sorry. Okay, I'm going to close this. Sorry. Average transport weekly. And then we say our average cost of transport is about 5,421 naira per week for the 71 people. Well, that's still making some sense. So if you multiply this by 4, for example, so that will lead us, let's that lead us to multiplication, which is a function that is product. Let that lead us to product, and then we say transport per month. Now, in the question, in the survey that you filled, it was actually transport per week. Now, transport per month, since we found the average, is that I will multiply this by 4, that's this total transport per week. We'll multiply this by 4, or we actually also multiply this by 4. And since we found average, let's actually multiply the average by 4. So transport per month is equal to product this 04 multiplied by 4. That's like 4 weeks per month. And then we can close that. So we have 21,000. We have about 21,000 naira spent on transport per month. I want this money plenty. Okay, so now you can see gradually and slowly we are beginning to get some insights from this data that looks like junk, right? If you're looking at it from the outside, you may not be able to come to this kind of conclusion, but because you're able to take it gradually, somehow, you're beginning to see what it actually looks like. Now, let that also lead us to subtraction, right? If you want to perform subtraction, okay, sorry. If you want to do a little bit of subtraction, now the minimum wage is about 30,000, right? Now let's take out the minimum wage from our transport per month, this one that we arrived at, right? We want to see what is left for the average person in this case. Now, this part of the data or this part of the class is not really realistic because we know I want to guess that averagely we all earn more than the minimum wage. But be that as it may, we can still say you can still use the minimum wage as a benchmark for this class, for the purpose of this class. So if the minimum wage is 30,000 and we subtract 21,000 from it, how much is left for the average person in this class to spend per month? So, and I'm going to just say subtract, okay, or living, how do I put it? Now I'm lost for word. All right, let me just go ahead and see. Our minimum wage in this case is about 30,000, right? So I'm just going to write 30,000 minus this. And it's saying when you take out transport, all we have left is about 8,315 naira per person. Are we still together, everybody?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we are with you.
All right, all right. So this is making some sense.
We are following. Yes.
So this is all right. So a little bit of note, our time is almost up. We have about less than 2 minutes left. If the meeting goes off, let's all join back using the same link. So when the meeting goes off, let's all reconnect using the same link so we can continue from where we stopped. So now what we have here is the difference between the minimum wage and whatever we have spent or each of us spent on transport per month. And that's why we have just about 8,000 left per person. God help us. Okay, so now all of these things that I've done, all of these functions that we've used so far, except for this subtraction, we made use of functions. At the same time, too, you can always use formulas, but I prefer you use functions as often as you can. It makes your work easier. It makes your project faster. Also, it makes life easy for everybody. So I do hope we all understand how far we have come. Any questions so far before this thing goes off?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you for the lecture. Um, Although you've talked about it earlier, using of functions. So I was expecting that when you wanted to do the is it minimum wage minus transport minus transport per month. I was expecting maybe you do something like equal to subtract, and you open your bracket, and possibly you do 21,684. Then you close
Okay.
brackets to get this value, but you just went straight ahead to
So input 30,000, right?
30. Yes, and all of that.
Okay. So here's the thing. Um, I don't know. I don't know for certain or for sure. Let's confirm if there's a function for subtraction. I'm not really too sure about that. I don't know. I'm not finding it. So if perchance maybe someone here knows a cheat or a function for subtraction in Excel, you can just bring it up in the next session, because in less than 1 minute, this one will go off.
Okay. Please, I want you to go back to that transport by month. How do we get that transport by month? So I lost that this product is open bracket 04 comma. So I did not get the other function
Okay,
I will make use of
we multiply
under
it by
transport
4.
by month.
All right. So um, we multiplied the transport per week by 4. That was how we got 21,684. And then we subtracted this from 30,000 to give us the leftover from the salary. We subtracted this from 30,000 to give us the leftover from the salary. And someone made a comment that to get the leftover, I just did 30,000 minus 21,000 plus, right? I'm not so sure, but I think for subtraction and division, there are no functions in Excel to do those. There are no direct functions to do those. So I'm not too sure. I'm not saying this for a certainty, but I really think there are no functions to do those two. So that take us to a division, right? Since I said there are no functions, for subtraction, you just use your normal dash. For subtraction, you use the normal dash symbol for subtraction, while for division, you use the slash symbol. So let's actually divide this, what you have here, by this. So it's going to be this divided by this. Now, in this case, it's giving us 5,039, which is also wrong because it's supposed to be the same thing with this. Okay. So now I see where the issue is now. If we remember, the average function that we used, we calculated it, we used it on this column E, right? The average function was used on column E. But then to get our number of participants, we used column A. Now for column E, when you use the average function will take out this cell that is empty. We also take out this cell that is empty and take out every other empty cell. 3, 4. Okay, so there are 4 empty cells there, I think. When you use the average function, you take out the empty cells. So now in this case, instead of saying 03, that's 71, let me take out 4, that's going to be 67. That's 71 minus 4 is going to be 67. Am I sure it's actually 4? Okay, I'm trying to look for the blank cells. 1, 2, 3, there's another one there, 4, 5. Okay, so there are 5 blank cells there, and this is going to be 66, not 67. Now we actually have the same figures. This is a function for average, and this we use the normal formula. So now you see the difference. When we use the function, the issue there is this 71 participants, a few of them skipped certain cells. And if you use the average function, it's also going to skip those cells. While when we did it manually and we counted the number of participants, it gave us the slight error there. All right, so now when I was doing this thing, you people will notice that I was manually counting, right? It's not even supposed to be. This is Excel. There is almost a function for everything. There's almost a function for everything in Excel. So you could do something like this. Counter. And then go ahead and select this column here. That's Control Shift plus down just until you get to the end of the whole thing. And let's see what our value is, 66. So instead of counting one by one, looking for the one that is empty, we could have just used the counter function. So I think that has also settled the counter function on our behalf. Are we together? Are we still here, please?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello,
yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir. We are still here. So we are still here.
Okay. Is there a question?
Indeed. Yes, most times when you do this highlighting stuff and you are trying to run a function, probably by the time you finish the highlighting, you find out that, oh, the result already popped up. Now I want to example equal to counter, and then you have your open bracket with that column there. So after you highlighted the entire column,
Okay.
do you put you close the bracket again and then your result pops out, or immediately you just highlight the result pops out on its own?
No, you have to close the bracket and punch enter.
Okay, that's fine.
So for every function, or in every function, for every bracket you open, you must find where you close them. So you must close them. All right, so this so far, we will say we've done the basic. Please let me quickly turn off my video. I think this thing is actually draining my battery. All right, so we have some other functions that we want to use: the SUMIF function, the COUNTIF function, the average-if function, the max and the min function. And if we still have time, let's make use of the if function also, right? Okay, so we'll just start. Okay, before we go for the SUMIF, the COUNTIF, and the average-if, let's look at the max and the min function. Max is maximum, min is minimum. So from a given set of data, you want to probably see which one is the highest value, which one is the lowest value. I want to also find the lowest spend. Please pardon all this grammar. I'm not really the lowest spend on transport. All right, so for the highest spend, we use the max function, which is equal to max, open brackets. Now you go back again to select the cell or the column that involves transport, right? And then you highlight it, right? Okay, so somebody said highlighting. Okay, so I think the last cell there is E71 or E72. I'm not really sure. So max E2 to E72. I'm going to close my bracket and punch enter. But let's be sure that that's actually E72 is the last cell. Okay, it's correct, 72. All right, so there's somebody that submitted this data that spends 35,000 naira per week on transport. Wow. Should we look for the person? Okay, I think I see somebody here, 35,000. So this person spends highest on transport per week. God help us. And so how do we find lowest spend on transport? Right? I see a lot of 000. Some people are having a blank cell. I don't know if it's going to pick it as the lowest, but let's see. Let's see what we have. And the lowest is going to be minimum, open our bracket, E2 down to E72 again, and close our bracket. And it is saying 200. So there's someone who spends 200 per week. Invariably, this person doesn't really go out at all, or at least doesn't take transport, because transport, yeah, go up everywhere. All right, so basically you can see slowly but surely we are trying to get some data from this. Everybody's trying to get some insight from the data set that looks like jargons or that doesn't really make any sense at first sight. All right, so now let's move on to the sum ifs, the count ifs, the average ifs function, and all the plenty ifs, right? So the sum if function is a conditional function. In fact, all the functions that involves ifs are conditional. So the sum if function, you're telling Excel to sum values that meet certain criteria, right? So we can say Microsoft Excel should sum for us where this gender is male. Let us know how much they spend on transport. Now, invariably, all of these transport is for both male and female. But for some reason, you might want to say, I want to know how much do the guys spend on transport? How much do the ladies spend on transport? And so to do something like that, you use the sum if function. It's a condition. So if the first condition will be, if the gender is male, then add up the transport. And if the gender is female, do this or something like that, right? So let's go ahead and, but for this case, I don't want us to use transport. Let's use, I think there's another column there, data subscription, right? Or do we just stick to transport so that you guys will use data subscription as um as assignment or as take home? Now that's an open question to be asked. If let me hear your response.
Yeah, let's use transport.
Let's continue with the transport. So we use the
Yes,
data for assignment.
All right.
yes, sir, yes, sir. And we would like to have the data all through so that we can make use of it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so let's find transport by male gender, and we will say equal to sum if. Now it's asking for the range, right? You can see now for functions, you will see all of this down below. It's an insight, an idea of how to actually use the function, right? Okay, so now it's asking for range. What is our range? Our range is the gender. Let's go ahead and select the gender. This is B2 to B72. Okay, sorry about that. B2 to B72, comma, that's our range. And what is the criteria? our criteria is what to look for the one for male gender, right? It's either you type it out, put it in quotes, please. If you're typing it out, remember to put it in quotes, and then you can say male, right? And then it's asking for our sum range. That's the third one. Now our sum range is going to be the, oh, sorry, I'm just going to edit it. Our sum range is going to be the column that contains our transport costs, E2 to E72. Why am I having these plenty errors? Okay, okay, so somebody asked about brackets the other time, right? So in this case, I opened one bracket and I'm closing it with two brackets. That's why I'm having this error. All right, so I'm just going to accept this correction, and then we have this. So this is how much the guys spend on transport per month from this total figure. Let's look at transport by female gender. You can say SUMIF, and our range is going to be this, right? And I'm going to say what is our our criteria is going to be female. Please, if you're typing it out this way, remember to put it in quotes. And our sum range is going to be comma E2 to E72. Then the ladies spends this much on transport. Now I was saying something that time to always remember to put it in quotes. That's because sometimes you don't even want to put it in. There are other ways to actually also put that, to also do that. For example, okay, I will do that in the next function. So let's just go ahead. So this is how much the guy spends, and this is how much the ladies spend. And you can always do that with a conditional statement, which is a SUMIF function. Let's go ahead and use the COUNTIF function. And we can say, okay, let's count the total number of people that spends more than, let's say 10,000 naira on transport per week. Number of people who spends more than okay, somebody's asking about the SUMIF function. All right, please look at the formula bar here. The first range here, the first part of the function here is the range. And the range that we actually wanted was that of the gender, right? So we are saying if this range equal to male or is the same thing as male, right? Then the sum range, which is the third one, sum this one for us. This is where the values are. The cost of transport, this is where they are. That's column E2 to E72. That's how you use it. I do hope that is clear. Okay, so I was saying you want to count how many of these people spend, that's for both male and female, spend more than 10,000 naira on transport per week. Okay. Transport greater than 10,000. So now, previously I was emphasizing that make sure to put it in quotes. Are we still together, please?
Yes, we are together.
Yes, I'll be too, sir.
All right. So previously I was emphasizing that you put the criteria in quotes, but sometimes they don't really necessarily have to be in quotes, especially if you're referencing a cell. You can actually also reference a cell. So in this case, we're going to reference a cell by putting 10,000 here. You can also do the same thing for this gender, but then since that is done, let's just go ahead and do it in this case. Number of people who spend more than 10,000 on transport. Whose transport is greater than 10,000. Okay, so it's going to be count if. Now, we are looking for the number of people. So that means we are counting. Count if, right? And what is the range? We want to go back to our transport range, right? E2. So please, you can see it in the formula bar here. So E72. And what is our criteria? Our criteria is going to be greater than, I think this one I have to put it in quotes. I'm not 100% sure. Greater than what? I'm looking for the column where I wrote 10,000. I think it's somewhere here. I do hope it's really there. Okay, so let me push this out so I can easily see it. Okay. So it's not going to be E14, it's going to be T14. Greater than T14. Okay. I'm not sure if you saw that when I was doing it, but I said COUNTIF, and this is our range, and our criteria is greater than T. Now we added this AND symbol, which is a symbol for concatenation. That's for joining. I don't want to say addition, for joining two variables or two cells or two whatever it is, to join them together. This is because greater than is in quotes. So we need to join it with this, right? So greater than T14. So it is saying 6 people from all of this spend more than 10,000 naira on transport, right? Now, if we don't want to use the function, like we don't want to reference this cell, okay, we can still just go ahead and say, I'm going to edit this greater than 10,000. Now I've taken it out and it's still giving us the same figure of 6. This is it here, it's giving us 6. So I'm just going to undo the last action because I want to reference this cell. So now we are referencing this 10,000. So it's telling us 6 people spend more than 10,000 naira per week on transport. Now let's change this value here to 5,000 naira and see how many people spend more than 5,000 per week. Now it has changed to 19. And that's the beauty of you referencing cells in Excel, especially in your function. When you reference cell, it is easy for you to adjust. Now I can go back and say 8,000. But if I did not reference a cell and I had coded it, right, like I did in this case, by putting mill in between, for each time I want to make an adjustment, I have to come and edit the whole function again, which is sometimes is very, very burdensome. Did anybody understand what I just explained?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So you can actually change this value to whatever you like.
Very clear.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to put 1,000 here. And 56 people spend more than 1,000 naira per day. Now you can see that slowly but surely we're getting some level of or some kind of insight from this data set. All right, so and the logic is the same for the sum if, the count if, and the average if. For average if, you will see something like you see something like this: range, criteria, average range. Just the same way you lined it up when you were doing the sum if is the same thing, the same way you also line it up with the average if. And please permit me to say this. I don't know if we don't have light very soon. My battery is almost dead, which I deeply apologize for this. I deeply apologize for this. I had some things to do in the afternoon. So I'm really sorry, but then let's see how far we can still go. All right, so beyond the sum if, the average if, there's also the sum ifs, like the ifs in plural. That is when you have multiple criteria that you're checking, right? You know, in this case, we only checked for, okay, this one is guy, this one is for the male, how much did they spend? For the female, how much did they spend? It's just a single criteria. Sometimes you want to say if they are guys and they drink bottled water, right? You want to say how much did they spend on data, or how much did they spend on transport? Sometimes you want to say something like for people who use MTN, you want to know, do they also drink bottled water? You want to actually compare those who use MTN as their network. Do they use bottled water, and how much did they spend on data per month or per week or whatever criteria is there? So when you have multiple criteria like that, that is more than one, what you use is the sum ifs function. Let's see if we can get one done. Equal to, and okay, this is what we're going to do. I don't want to use the sum ifs. I want to use the count ifs, right? We want to count how many are male and their age also is between 26 and 40. Or do we still use something that relates to transport? Hello?
We can go ahead with that. No, you can go ahead.
This is your first option.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
I'm going to say count ifs. Count ifs, and our criteria range 1, which is this here, is going to be this, right? I'm going to say comma, and what's the criteria? I want to see, open my double quotes and say male, comma. Now you can see criteria range 2, which is going to be C2 to C 72. And what's my criteria? I want to say, open double quotes again. Let's say 26 and 40, this option here. You can actually just select any of these, sorry. You can select any of these cell. Now I had that error because I actually opened the double quotes. So I deleted it and select just this cell, right? So Excel is going to look through all of these, whichever one is male, and it's also between age 26 and 40, give us the total number of those people. Let me close that bracket. And it's saying from the old data set, there are 42 people who are male and also aged between 20 and are also aged between age 26 and 40. Let me cut and paste this. Count male. So we have 42 guys from all of these who are between 26 and 40. You can also use any other criteria to also use your SUMIF and the COUNTIF. Now, why I use the COUNTIF, it's not because you cannot use the SUMIF, but I don't want it to just be like we're using the SUMIF, using other functions or other criteria. It's the same procedure, the same method, right? If it was to be a SUMIF, it's going to be whatever criteria it is. For example, B2 to B72, we want to know the male. And then, for the SUMIF, we will not be looking at the age, right? We will not be able to count this age because this age is in word 26 and 40. There's no way you can do this arithmetic except you clean up this data first. So if you're going to clean up this data, it's going to be something like at least one thing I'm starting off, you have to actually take out this and then maybe you split 26 and 40 separately. You split them up. All right, but that's not what we want to do. So if you're using a SUMIF for this same thing, you can actually just say SUMIF if the range is going to be the gender and what the criteria is going to be male or female, then comma. The second criteria is going to be the column for your transport. The column for transport, comma, and the criteria are going to be, let's say, more than 5,000, greater than 5,000, or greater than 1,000, whatever figure you want to put there. Now you can also still go ahead and say, comma, this is the third criteria now. What other criteria can we add? In the last 7 days, how many soft drink have you taken? I think we have a question like that. In the last 7 days, how many bottles of soft drink have you taken? So you can put so many criteria together like that and let Excel do its thing. I hope we do understand how far we've come.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
All right, I have less than 19 minutes left on my battery. But then before we round up, I want to know, is there a question in there I would like to answer before we call it a night? Question, anyone with a question in the house?
Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening, I can hear you.
I'm Adini, sorry, by name. I'm Adini by name. I found it very difficult to connect to the Zoom class. I was even logging in with my phone. I didn't know that it was a wrong book that I just made. So I'm just entering the class now, so I didn't understand anything from the beginning. I just opened just now. So I don't know, maybe you can help me, maybe summarize some things or anything, or maybe there's any record I can go through after the class or something like that. I think I'm looking at the record or something. So I don't know. You can help me with that.
It's all right.
I'm so sorry, sir.
We'll work something out. We'll work something out. But that'll be tomorrow, though, for those waiting for the recording. Maybe tomorrow or next. Let's say tomorrow. I'll drop it tomorrow. All right. Any other question in the house?
Hello, sir. Thank you very much. Okay. So the link you are talking about, is it that there is a WhatsApp group here, you post it, or we'll go search you on the internet, on YouTube with a particular name or something?
Okay. How did you join us?
Well, someone sent me the link.
All right. There's a group, and the person should have sent you the group link also. But then there's a group, and how do I? Okay, get the group info from the person who sent you the link. I'll post the recording there, the link to the recording there.
All right, that's fine. There's no problem. Thank you.
All right. Any other question?
Okay. Yes, sir. I have a question, sir.
All right.
So you were talking about assignment the other time. You are talking about assignment the other time. So we would like to have the chart. Well, let's say the chart of this packaging, this so that we can work on the other part you ask us to work on. Maybe tonight, probably tonight or tomorrow.
All right. I'll when I drop the link to the video, or maybe before then, I would also drop you this data, the downloaded copy, so you can work on
Yes,
it.
sir. The data. Yes. Yes,
No
yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So this is where we'll draw the curtain tonight. If there's no more question, but if there's a question, please, you can go ahead and.
Sorry, I have a very important question, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. My question is, please, I would like as much as possible you should try it, even it will take us a token for a certificate after this whole training. No, it's not just uncalled for when you said you've learned something and you know it and you know that you know it and there is nothing to show of it, no certificates, no something to back your knowledge up. So you just saying it their mouth can be somehow, how the system of Nigeria look like, because I attended an interview then also and I said I know a little bit on some things and they were asking of certificates, but I don't have certificates for that. So it's really as if until you prove to them practically. So maybe we can have something like certificate. Maybe we can work on that, sir. Please. It's just a plate though.
Okay. So okay. All right, I heard you, but my thought is I'm not really a fan of certificates, at least not anymore. I've come to realize our reliance on certificates do not even allow people to really gather knowledge. Everybody does the gather certificates, but ask them question about those things they claim to have learned or to have acquired that give them that certificate, they end up failing woefully at it. And that's why I never considered issuing a certificate, but it's no problem. But the thing is, one thing is easy. Getting a certificate anytime, you can sit down with your laptop and design a certificate, and in 10, 20 minutes, you go to print it and you can present it anywhere. So, but that's being said, maybe we can talk one-on-one in my WhatsApp DM, but I don't want to really make it an official arrangement.